Was MLK a criminal? Was George Washington a terrorist? Is a hot dog a sandwich? According to most dictionaries, the answer is yes. MLK committed a crime, which makes him a criminal. George Washington killed civilians to advance his political aims, which makes him a terrorist. And of course, a hot dog is a food item consisting of meat between sliced bread, which makes it a sandwich. Me saying these things makes you uncomfortable, even though it's all true. Why? The philosopher Plato is big on definitions. He had come up with formal definitions for many words. Specifically, he said, a human is a featherless biped. But soon, his rival Diogenes brought a plucked chicken to Plato's academy and said, here is Plato's human. In response, Plato amended his definition to say, a featherless biped with broad flat nails. Something seems wrong here, but like the examples before, it's kind of hard to put your finger on what. Imagine Diogenes had left a young child rather than a chicken. Plato wouldn't have felt any need to change his definition. Diogenes had proven the definition Plato wrote down isn't the same as the one people actually used. You could say that Diogenes proved Plato's definition wrong. The definition in Plato's head wasn't, a human is a featherless biped. If it were, he wouldn't have felt the need to change it. So, why didn't Plato just write the definition he had in his head? He does have some rule to decide whether he calls something a human. He must in order to know that a chicken isn't one. Plato didn't write down the rule he uses because he didn't know what it was. In fact, for almost all the definitions in your head, you couldn't write them down if you tried. If you could look inside your brain and see the definitions you subconsciously subscribe to, they wouldn't look anything like the definitions you're used to seeing in dictionaries. Here's a simplified version of the definition for human you really use. Has 2 eyes above a nose, plus 3 human points. Has a heartbeat, plus 4 human points. Wears clothes, plus 2 human points. Has feathers, minus 8 human points. For any object you see or think of, you add up its human points. If the number is high enough, you call it a human. Notice that there aren't any traits that are necessary or sufficient. If someone had a birth defect that made them grow feathers, you'd still call them a human, even though Plato says he wouldn't. And as an aside, most definitions today aren't much better. Merriam-Webster says a human is a bipedal primate mammal. I bet whoever wrote that didn't do it from a wheelchair. Now, what does this have to do with trans people? Watch this video of Ben Shapiro.
Transgender woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time magazine.
Do you see what's happened here? Ben has automatically put Laverne Cox in his brain's female category because of the similarity she has to almost every other woman he's ever seen. If the chromosomal definition were the one his brain really used, then he'd never have accidentally used that pronoun. He's forcing himself to go against the definition his brain is really using whenever he refers to a trans woman or man, but it doesn't work because it's really hard to change your brain's internal definitions. And I don't think Ben is an isolated case. Almost everyone would have trouble consistently misgendering Laverne Cox. Unfortunately, the difficulty also goes the other way. Most people have mental definitions that would make it really hard for them to consistently refer to this trans woman as she, even if they really wanted to. This can lead to well-intentioned and good-natured people accidentally misgendering when they don't mean to. SJWs like me go against their brain to use the pronouns people want them to use. People like Benjamin Shapiro go against their brain to use the pronouns associated with their chromosomes. Neither of these seems much harder than the other to me. So when faced with the choice of which of these to adopt, why did I choose the SJW route? Because the evidence is clear that social acceptance improves trans people's well-being. In the case of trans people who pass, you should do what's natural and right instead of going out of your way to hurt them just because you mistakenly think it's more scientifically correct. And in the case of trans people who don't pass, I recommend trying anyway. Doing anything else is weird. As long as transition is possible, trans people will do it, so trying to stick with the chromosomal perspective will only lead you into weird situations, like this one, where this guy is legally forced to use the woman's restroom because he was born with a vagina. I'd like you to try and be charitable with people who fall for the dictionary definition trap laid by transphobes like Ben Shapiro. Even Plato missed it. Changing people's minds is easier through kindness than derision. If you like this video and want to see more, consider subscribing. If you didn't like this video and want to take me down a notch, join my Discord. Link in the description. Anyway, see you next time.